Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event.
Imagine for a second you're building a house. You hire a contractor and they promise hand on heart that they're using the best fire-resistant wood available. You trust them. You don't check. But then a small kitchen fire burns the whole place down in 10 minutes because, well, they actually use cheap plywood.
That is a terrifying image, but I see exactly where you're going with this. You're talking about trust versus verification.
Exactly. For years, the US Department of Defense has basically been operating on the honor system with its supply chain regarding cybersecurity. Do you have good passwords? Is your network secure? And the contractors would just check a box saying yes.
And we all know how well the honor system works when billions of dollars and state secrets are on the line. But that era is officially over. We are looking at the finalization of the CMMC rule, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification.
It's a mouthful, but it's probably the most significant shift in government contracting we've seen in decades. The final rule is out. No more guessing. So, help us unpack this. We've gone from, trust me I'm secure, to what exactly?
To prove it or you're out. That's the headline. The Department of Defense released this final rule to codify how they verify that contractors, and we aren't just talking about the giants like Lockheed or Boeing, but the little guys making screws and washers are actually protecting sensitive data.
Right, and that's the kicker. It's the verification. Before, under the old NIST standards, a company could self-attest. They could say, yeah, we're compliant, while writing their passwords on sticky notes attached to their monitors.
Precisely. And the data showed that was happening. The DoD found that a huge percentage of companies who said they were compliant actually had massive security gaps. So, CMMC is the answer. It introduces a tiered system. Level 1, Level 2, and Level 3. And for the critical stuff, you can't just grade your own homework anymore. You need a certified third-party assessor to come in and turn your network upside down.
That sounds expensive and stressful.
It is both. But think about the alternative. We are talking about Controlled Unclassified Information, or CUI. It sounds boring, right? Unclassified.
It sounds like paperwork.
It sounds like paperwork, but it's actually the blueprints for the next fighter jet. It's the code for the radar systems. It's the logistical maps of supply routes. If you piece enough unclassified information together, you get the entire picture of US military capability. Our adversaries know this. They aren't trying to hack the Pentagon's front door anymore. They're hacking the HVAC repair company that services the Pentagon.
That's the soft underbelly argument.
Exactly. So, this new rule is trying to armor plate the underbelly.
Let's dig into the mechanics of this finalized rule. I read that they've tried to streamline it a bit compared to the original version a few years ago. It's not quite as draconian for everyone, right?
Right. They realized that if they made the requirements too high for everyone, the entire defense industrial base would collapse. The local bakery that delivers donuts to a base doesn't need military-grade encryption. So, Level 1 is still self-assessment. It's basic cyber hygiene. Antivirus, changing passwords, locking doors.
Okay, so the donut shop is safe. But what about the machine shop making parts for a drone?
That's where it gets interesting. That's likely Level 2. This is where the CMMC rule really shows its teeth. If you handle CUI, that sensitive data we talked about, you now have to align with NIST 800 to 171 standards. And for a lot of these contracts, you will need a C3PAO.
A C3PAO. We love acronyms.
We do. a certified third-party assessor organization. Basically, an auditor who comes in, checks your systems, and gives you a pass or fail. And if you fail, you don't get the contract. Period.
That's a binary outcome. There's no partial credit?
Well, there is a small window for a plan of action and milestones, or POAM, where you can say, okay, we failed these 3 things, but we'll fix them in 180 days. But that's only for certain non-critical controls. Generally speaking, this is a gate. You have the key or you don't.
I want to talk about the ripple effect of this, because whenever the government drops a massive regulatory framework, there are winners and losers. The winners are obviously the cybersecurity consultants.
Oh, business is booming for them.
But the potential losers, I'm thinking about small businesses. Innovation in the US often comes from small, agile startups. If I'm a startup with amazing drone tech, but I have 5 employees, and now I have to pay $50,000 or $100,000 for an audit just to bid on a contract, do I just walk away?
That is the single biggest criticism and fear surrounding CMMC. The barrier to entry. The DoD is walking a tightrope here. On one side, national security. On the other, economic diversity. If the cost of compliance is too high, you shrink the supply chain. You end up with only the massive conglomerates who can afford entire compliance departments.
Which stifles innovation.
It does. And it creates a fragility of its own. If you only have 3 suppliers for a critical component because the other 50 went out of business or pivoted to the commercial sector, you've created a supply chain bottleneck. The DoD says they've modeled the costs and that it's manageable. But for a small shop operating on thin margins, a $60,000 assessment bill is a lot of money.
It's an existential crisis for some.
It is. But let's flip the coin. What is the cost of not doing it? We are losing roughly $600 billion a year in intellectual property theft, mostly to China. That is a staggering number. It's the greatest transfer of wealth in human history.
$600 billion?
Yes, and a lot of that is stolen from these small contractors who didn't have the budget for security. So, in a way, the small businesses were subsidizing their low costs by neglecting security, and the US economy was paying the price in lost IP.
That's a brutal way to put it, but I see the logic. It's like saying we made cheap cars because we didn't put seatbelts or airbags in them.
Exactly. And now the government is saying, no more cars without airbags, even if it makes the car more expensive.
So, how is this rollout going to happen? Is it a light switch? Everyone wakes up tomorrow and needs a certificate?
Thankfully, no. That would cause chaos. It's a phased rollout over 3 years. They're going to start slipping CMMC requirements into specific contracts, slowly ramping up until it's in all solicitations. So, companies have a runway. But, and this is a big but, the runway is shorter than it looks.
How so?
Because getting compliant isn't something you do in a weekend. Implementing these controls, changing your company culture, segregating your networks, and then scheduling an audit. That's a 1-2 to 1-8 month process. If you haven't started yet, you're already late.
That's a warning shot if I ever heard one.
It is. And there's another layer here we haven't touched on. The prime versus sub dynamic.
Right, the flow down.
Yes. If I'm a prime contractor, say Raytheon or Northrop Grumman, I am now responsible for ensuring my supply chain is clean. I can't just hire a subcontractor and wash my hands of it. I need to know they are compliant.
So the big companies are going to become the enforcers?
They have to be. Because if their sub leaks data, the prime's contract could be at risk. You're going to see a lot of pressure coming from the top of the supply chain pushing down. The big guys will say to the little guys, "Get certified or we literally cannot cut you a purchase order."
It changes the business relationship entirely. It's no longer just about price and quality. It's price, quality, and security. The Holy Trinity.
And honestly, it's about time. We've been treating cyber as an IT problem for too long. Oh, call the computer guy. The printer is broken. This rule elevates cyber to a C-suite, board-level risk issue. It's a business license issue now.
I want to zoom out a bit. We're talking about defense contractors here, but usually what happens in the DoD doesn't stay in the DoD. Do you see this model, this verification over trust model spreading?
Without a doubt. We're already seeing whispers of it in other federal agencies. DHS, the Department of Energy. But think about the private sector. If you're a hospital or a bank or you run a power grid, why wouldn't you want this same level of assurance from your vendors?
It becomes the gold standard.
Exactly. CMMC might technically be a DoD rule, but it's effectively setting the standard for what good supply chain security looks like in the 21st century. If you have a CMMC Level 2 certificate, that's a badge of honor. It tells any customer, government or commercial, we take this seriously.
So it could actually be a competitive advantage?
Huge. If I'm a small machine shop and I bite the bullet, spend the money and get certified early, I'm suddenly the prettiest girl at the dance. When the primes are desperate to find compliant subs, I'm the one they call.
That's the optimistic take. I like that. It's not just a tax, it's an investment in marketability.
It requires a mindset shift. But yes,
I'm curious about the verification process itself. You mentioned these third-party assessors. Is there a risk of, well, corruption is a strong word, but grade inflation? You know, pay the auditor enough and you get the certificate?
that is a massive concern. The DoD has set up an accreditation body, the Cyber AB to police, the police. They are watching these assessors very closely. But any time you create a market for compliance, you create weird incentives. It's going to be a cat and mouse game. However, the penalties for fraud here are severe. We're talking False Claims Act violations.
Which means massive fines and potential jail time.
Right. If you lie about your security to get a defense contract, you are defrauding the government. The Department of Justice has launched a civil cyber fraud initiative specifically for this. So, if an auditor and a company conspire to fake a certification, they are playing with fire.
It feels like the Wild West era of the internet is finally closing. The fences are going up.
That's a great analogy. The frontier is being civilized. And civilization has rules, taxes, and police. It's less free, perhaps, but it's safer.
But does it make us slower? In a war, speed is everything. If we have to check everyone's paperwork before we can build a new drone, do we lose the edge against an adversary who doesn't care about rules?
That is the philosophical question of our time. Authoritarian regimes can move fast because they don't have to worry about due process or commercial markets in the same way. But their systems are often brittle. Our system is messy and expensive, but the idea is that by building a resilient base where the data is actually safe, we win the long game. What good is building the drone fast if the enemy stole the plans and built a countermeasure before yours even rolled off the line?
Touché. Speed means nothing if you're running in the wrong direction or if you're carrying the enemy on your back.
Exactly.
So, for the listeners out there, maybe they run a small tech firm, or maybe they're just concerned citizens watching the news. What is the takeaway here? Is CMMC a bureaucratic nightmare? Or is it the shield we've been missing?
It's both. It is going to be painful. There will be companies that go out of business because they cannot adapt. That is the harsh reality. But it is also absolutely necessary. We have been hemorrhaging our technological advantage for 20 years. This is the tourniquet. It hurts when you tighten it, but it stops the bleeding.
And for the companies listening,
don't wait. The final rule means the debate is over. The train has left the station. If you haven't started your gap analysis, do it today. Do not hope for a delay. Do not hope for a waiver. The DoD has made it clear. Security is now a condition of doing business.
it's a new world order for the supply chain.
It is. And frankly, it's a wake-up call that extends beyond just defense. It's about how we value data in the modern age. Is data an asset you protect like gold, or is it just exhaust? The DoD is saying, it's gold, treat it that way.
A powerful note to end on. The era of the honor system is dead. Long live the era of verification. It's going to be a bumpy ride for the next few years as this rolls out, but hopefully, on the other side, we have a fortress that actually keeps the secrets. Secret.
Here's hoping.
Thanks for breaking this down with us. It's complex, it's heavy, but it's the reality we live in.
My pleasure. Stay secure out there.
A special thank you to MarketUS.com for furnishing us this information. You can reach them at MarketUS.com or call them at 954-636-3232. Before we go, this deep dive was created by the MarketUS.com team. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. It's right below the subscribe link.